Hey, what's up, YouTube? So I started to make a video here a couple of days ago, and it had to do with juvenile murderers and then being set free because of a stupid law change in 2012. And 17-year-olds that commit murder are being reevaluated, resentenced, and in some cases they're being freed, and when they've been given a life sentence. And so I disagree with that because when you commit sins, there's consequences. And those consequences, depending on the dastardly deed, the horrible deeds committed, should last with you for the rest of your life. When you remove somebody from this planet because you planned it, plotted it, put it together, instrumental in it, and did the dastardly deed, God can forgive you. I don't. I won't. I wouldn't. I couldn't. And I consider myself to be a God-fearing individual. And, there's a difference between murder and killing. To murder somebody is to take the life of an innocent person. Having been in law enforcement for 8 years, you may find yourself in a position where you may have to take the life of another individual. And that individual may be doing something incredibly horrible to someone else, or may have just committed a horrible act where it warrants the use of deadly force. So you go through this whole process of going to school and having an FTO and having some really good ones. I had some really, really great partners, in my 8 years that, when you spend a lot of time in a patrol car with somebody, I mean, you talk about everything pretty much under the sun. I know obviously one of the things you talk about are law enforcement related things: do's, don'ts, what ifs, could haves, what ifs, should haves, those kind of things. So I had the fortune of learning a lot. I had the fortune of meeting a couple of really great judges, and I won't name on here. And one of them in particular made a really good impression on me as a young man. And he's long since retired, but I'm still not going to mention his name. But I had one of my best friends was he's a retired warden. 30 some years plus, in that arena, and then a number of friends that have retired from law enforcement. So I'm well versed in this whole arena of these convicts, having their come to a Jesus moment while they're in prison, and they all come to Jesus. A lot of them do. They come to Jesus, and it's a way for them to get in and get in with the psychologist and say, look, I've turned my life around. I've read the Bible in and out, backwards, forwards, and left and right, and and the Lord spoke to me. I'm here to tell you, the Lord doesn't speak to you. That's not the era that we're in. And if the Lord spoke to you, it's called the Bible. And you read God's word through the Bible. We have everything we need in the Bible. I'm a firm believer in that. And the Bible tells us that. And so when people say they had a dream and the Lord spoke to them in a dream and they had a vision and they had this and that, that's a lie. It doesn't happen. I'm here to tell you. I've been through a lot of things in my life. I've had a lot of things happen to me, and some really good things and some really bad things. And when I hear people like this, it's just like, there's a lot of people that would buy into that nonsense, and because they haven't been around, they haven't been on this side of the fence, and But they all had that moment, coming to Jesus moment. Some guys don't. Some guys are just as vile and evil as they were from day one. In some cases from birth. I don't know if you guys know the analogy of the farmer and the snake, but I'm here to tell you, when you get a wounded animal, a wounded human being, and he's locked up facing life in prison, it's amazing how fast these guys turn around, some, and partake in, I know the Lord. The Lord came to me. I'm saved. I'm saved, brother. I'm a new man. I'm a new creature. Of course you're going to say that. They have nothing else to do in prison, and they want to look good to the warden. They want to look good to the parole board. They want to appease the parole board. They learn, let me tell you, convicts, when they've been in prison for a long, long time, they learn how to read people. Okay? And so if you're going to survive prison for decades, you better learn that ability real quick. Okay? So when I see these guys, especially guys that have been in prison for decades, they know how to read people. And they know how to manipulate people, because that's what they do in prison. That's what you have to do when you're in prison. And I have never met, and I have friends that have far more experience than I do dealing with these knuckleheads, have ever met anybody that was truly repentant for the most heinous crime that you can think of. And what I'm talking about is not petty theft. It's not bank robbery or larceny. I'm talking about the ultimate crime, that demands, in my opinion, capital punishment. Life imprisonment or capital punishment. It's cut and dry. And now when you look at the recidivism rate, it's really high on a whole host of other things. It's not as high on the murder rate, because it takes a special sick prick to do that to another human being. And thank God we don't have a ton of those people, but we have enough of them, and that are truly predators. And so I was recently introduced to a guy that's truly a predator, and irregardless of his age, because I've been that age, and lots of people have been that age, and to claim that some of these guys were too immature, and I was in a dark place at that time. Well, everybody's in a fucking dark place at that time, and to use that as an excuse to plot, manipulate, go through the whole process of going through the most heinous act another man could commit upon an individual, and then to get out by the grace of God. It's not the grace of God that got you out of prison. It's a bunch of liberals that have manipulated the system, manipulated enough knuckleheads that said, oh, wait a minute, I don't think their brains are fully mature and they can comprehend the dastardly deed that they committed. Are you kidding me? What is the age? What's the difference between an 18-year-old who's now considered an adult and, say, a 17-year-old? I'll tell you. One digit. 18, 17. One digit. Same mindset. You don't miraculously mature from 17 to 18. It don't happen. And so it's not by the grace of God, that these sick people have been set loose. The world is on it's on its own course, and things happen for a reason. They're allowed to happen. God isn't out here manipulating things, okay? So, and God is not a respecter of men. So if you have an individual that does the worst horrible deed to another human being, and you know what I mean by that, because the other person's no longer with us, breathing oxygen, God doesn't go, I'm going to allow this guy to do the most horrible thing to somebody, and then I'm going to save him when he's in prison, and then I'm going to use this guy as a testimony. It doesn't happen that way. I'm telling you. It doesn't happen that way. And so let's talk about Paul, the Apostle Paul. Paul was a devout Jew. And Paul went around, murdering, Christians, killing Christians. But there was something unique about Paul. Paul was very passionate in what he was doing and truly believed that he was doing it for the Lord, that Christians were blasphemous. And Paul was also unique because he was also a Roman citizen. So there was a lot of uniqueness there in Paul. Not only could Paul minister to the Jews because he's very familiar with Jewish customs, Jewish law, but he's also very familiar with the pagan rituals and pagan law as a Roman. So Paul was in a very unique position to do what the Lord needed him to do, and that was to minister to the Gentiles. Now, I'm no biblical scholar by any stretch of the imagination. But I've read the Bible and I understand the Bible, and I know where we are at today, on a Christian perspective, within the world, in the sin that's in the world. God gave us free will, and God gave us the Bible, and God has allowed many people to come into my life and influence me in wonderful, positive ways. But I've also had negative things happen to me too. And those negative things have allowed me to be the man that I am today. Have allowed me to be the guarded man that I am today. And have allowed me to be the family man that I am today, and to love my children as much as I do today. And it's because of the Lord. And, God had a plan for me. And the plan was for me to be born. And to go through the things that I went through. Because those things were going to chisel me into the person that I am today, and to give me that radar that every dad should have when a vile individual, comes within your sphere of influence, and when good people come in your sphere of influence, and you have an opportunity to lead and to show, young people, give them direction. But when you have people that do some of the most dastardly things to another human being, and then they don't truly own it, you can't say that, I was involved in something, when you were the one that actually perpetrated it. And you know what I mean? You're the one that pulled the trigger. You're the one that did it. So to use the phrase, I was involved in, or I participated in, when you're the one that planned it, did it, orchestrated it, there's no excuse for that. There's no forgiveness for that. The only forgiveness is, you pray to the Lord that the Lord will spare your soul on Judgment Day, and then you just do your time. Do the crime, do the time. And to get out and act like nothing ever happened, and to diminish the crime that you committed. I've said this for many years. It's thank God I'm married and I have children. And I have a moral compass, because it keeps me from doing the things that I want to do. And many times in the Bible did the Lord go out and destroy a whole city, and destroyed evil. Evil needs to be destroyed. And and capital punishment is not a sin. I mean, it's in the Bible. It's permitted. Because the Lord knows that you're going to have those people in society that there is no fixing. Once you cross that line, that line of where you can take an innocent life, There's no coming back from that. Especially if you do it in a cold-hearted way, where it's in the most intimate way possible. That never leaves your head. It's always in your brain. And people like that should never be allowed to be around other people, because they can't be trusted, because they're liars. They're a snake. Again, the parable of the farmer and the snake. If you don't know it, Google it. Read it. That has been found to be true on so many different levels in America and across the world. You know, people have taken in snakes and have been murdered. They've thought that this guy or this gal would be is worth saving and have been murdered. They only needed a chance to accept the Lord and they've been murdered. I've been told stories, by folks that have investigated and lived those nightmares, and it just amazes me how our society can let people like that go. Their victims are in the cold, dark ground, and that's where they'll be till Judgment Day, till the Lord comes. But yet they're allowed to walk around, act like nothing happened, and try and persuade and take advantage of people that might be easily persuaded that you're a good person. And I'm telling you, you're not. And that's a line I'll never cross. And I'm not the only one that feels that way. So I like to reach out to folks and people that I know and trust in my circle, that I've gone to battle with, and been in some dark places with, especially in law enforcement. And I've had to ask questions about, it's like, why are we doing what we're doing? Why are we here? Why is this happening? It's good to ask those questions. And when I was in security and executive protection, there was another gentleman, several guys that I got to work with, who had to take a human life. And being a young man, I inquired as to how these events took place. And it doesn't harden you, but it makes you aware. And there's a lot of people that just walk through life with blinders on, like a horse. They have, I don't know what those paddles are called, but all they can see is straight ahead. They can't see what's going on. And you'd be surprised, as in America, how many pedophiles that you may pass at Walmart, Myers, the shopping mall, Disneyland. They're among us. Murderers, rapists. They've been let out, and they walk amongst us, and you can't trust those people. Again, because once you cross that line, that fine line, there's no coming back from that. There is no rehabilitation. There is none. And I don't want anybody to have to find themselves in a situation where this person decides to just snap one day. And then another innocent life is taken. There's consequences for your sin. I'm a sinner, just like everybody else on this planet is a sinner, and I've reaped the consequences of my sin, and I'll be judged, for those things. Not so much as like judged for my sin, but judged with what I knew and how I did things. So it's kind of, and I can't remember how it's worded, but it's like your rewards, and so I'll get what's due me, and I know that I'll go to heaven, but I'll get my I don't know how to word it properly, but I'll get what's coming to me, what I mean, in a godly way, and what's due me, because the Lord is gracious, And, I pray every day, every single day without fail. I pray for people that I don't like. I pray for discernment. So I pray for understanding, because sometimes you just don't understand certain things. And I struggle with that sometimes. I need a little clarity here. And so I'll research it. And I'll either watch it or I'll read it. And sometimes, I am justified that I was correct. I made the correct decision because I went through various sources and got proof. Like, one of the things I struggled with was a tattoo. I've always wanted a tattoo. But in Leviticus, I can't remember scripture, but in Leviticus it talks about, the negatives of a tattoo. And so I reached out to a couple pastors, and I got clarification on the verse. And I got clarification on, because, in the Bible, you got to know the who, what, where's, and when's. You got to know the context in which that letter was written in order to understand it. And then how to apply that to your life. Because not everything in the Bible is applicable today. And so you have to be able to, as Paul says, rightly divide the word. And that's critical. So I'm still learning. And anybody says they've got that down pat is a liar. And, I know I'm familiar with a person that has been doing this for 50 years, tells me, he's always finding something, even though he's read it before, 1,000 times before, will read something again and then have a revelation that he didn't have before. But I've never met an honest to God person, and I know a few, who say, the Lord spoke to me. It doesn't happen, folks. It doesn't happen. You will never hear another voice besides your own in your head telling you to do anything. And if you start hearing different voices that don't sound like you, chances are you got some big problems. But again, it goes back to rightly dividing the word and in reading the Bible, study the Bible. It's so important to do. And but you got to remember, everybody makes mistakes. Everybody's a sinner. But not every sin is the same. Some sins are just so gruesome, and we're not God. And not all sins can be forgiven by human beings, because the nature of the sin is so severe and so detrimental. Some people never get over that, and that's just how it is. So anyway, that was the longest video I think I've made, but I think it's important, and I think that as human beings, you need to be aware of who's in your circle, and don't be inviting snakes into your house. Once a snake, always a snake, and they don't change. I've never seen it, never experienced it. And listen to people. Listen to them closely. Listen to their words. Especially men. Men give themselves away easily. And when you know the beginning, in the middle, in the end, where they come from, it's really easy to put two and two together. In the Bible it says to some people say, oh, Bible says not to judge. That's wrong. God says to judge, but judge rightly, for by that same standard you too will be judged. So, if I'm going to judge somebody, I'm going to do my best to judge them rightly. And because it's important to do that, because the Lord sees everything, and I'll be held accountable for that. So I don't throw stones out there, especially serious ones, without making sure that I'm doing the right thing. And So anyway, we're on 25 minutes here, and you just have to do your due diligence, and again, if it's a snake, it's always been a snake, and it will continue to be a snake. And the devil is a great liar. He's the chief of all lies. He's got a lot of minions here on this planet, and they're really good at lying, and they're really good at deceiving people, and they have their tongues tickle the ear, and I'm not going to name names and stuff like that, but you have those people who are very, very, very they know how to read people, and they know how to tickle your ear. And if you've never been on the dark side, so to speak, your ability to discern, the snake's tongue and the snake's language, and to read these people, it's too bad. But so I've learned to read these people, because it was very important part of almost 17 years of my life, was to be able to learn how to read people. And so I took my job really serious, and when you run into some really bad eggs, body language is important. Their tone of voice is important. The ability to read somebody is really, really important, with your interaction, because if you misread somebody, it can get you seriously injured or even killed. And so always being prepared for that was super important. So not only was I prepared that way, but I was also prepared physically. And powerlifting was something I got introduced to 30 years ago, and that's something I just absolutely love to do. I mean, that is the best thing to do. And so when you find yourself in a position where you have to deal with the evil and the dastardly in this world, the bigger you are, the stronger you are, the better off you're going to be. And you're going to be more it's like being armed with the Bible, having the wisdom of the Bible and knowing the Bible, so that you can't be deceived. It's just kind of like living life, being prepared for the bad, being prepared for the wicked, both spiritually and physically. And it doesn't mean living your life in fear, on eggshells, but it's to live your life, but live your life wisely, and you'll have a long life. And but if you're going to be blind and ignorant and gullible, you're not going to have a good existence. You're going to have a rough life. So anyway, please like and subscribe. Leave a comment at the end of the video, if you like, or in the middle of the video if you don't want to watch the whole thing or whatever. But I'd appreciate if you give me a thumbs up. And it doesn't cost you anything to subscribe. It's free, and it certainly helps me out a lot. And so I look forward to making another video, hopefully something on a little more positive note. But I just want to encourage, people to just, learn the parable of the farmer and the snake, and, keep your family close, keep your friends close, your good friends close, keep your family even closer, and don't be bashful about speaking up when you know somebody that you love is doing something or involved in something that is going to be detrimental to them. Perhaps maybe not immediately, or maybe it's even down the road. Speak up. Squeaky wheel gets the grease. A real friend will always tell you the things that you don't want to hear. So like it or not, I'm always going to tell you the truth. You may not like it, and it may piss you off, but at the end of the day, you know where I stand. And if your argument and your reasoning is better than mine, I'm certainly big enough to listen. And I digress. But it's so important to be aware. So I would just encourage people to read the parable of the farmer and the snake. Read your Bible. so that people won't BS you, and to be frank, so that you won't be bullshitted. And because there are some really eloquent people out there that are really gifted with that forked tongue, and they can certainly tickle the ear. So don't be persuaded. Don't be misled. So, and again, so please like and subscribe. Thanks for watching the video, and talk to you soon.